this podcast. In this episode, we have a guest, Tanisha, who's a psychologist. In this episode, we discussed in depth about how your mental wellness and your physical wellness correlates. Both together make your body. Both are not different. It's together because your body is one, your mental health and your physical health comes together to form your body. In this episode, we also discussed about how you can approach different sets of practices to keep alignment of your both mental and physical wellness. Do watch the whole episode.
Hey Tanisha, how are you?
Hey Shank, I'm doing well. How are you doing?
Good, good, good. So, thank you for being here and accepting the offer to be a speaker here.
Of course. Thank you for having me. Thank you for inviting me.
Sure thing. So, we'll be very happy to discuss about the emotional intelligence part as well as about the major challenges that people face to communicate about their mental health challenges to the people around them. So, what's your opinion on it? Like, if anybody have a mental health issue or illness, or you can say a normal anxiety, how do they communicate and what challenges they used to face?
So, one big challenge in Indian society is of stigma, you know, and also the fact that the language around it is very new. Depending on who you are speaking to, they may not understand what that means. They may not be able to fully make sense of it. So, because of that, then there's a lot of, oh, but हमारे ज़माने में ऐसे नहीं होता था. Why are you suddenly now talking about these things? Even if friends are like you, yeah, but everyone goes through problems. So from different avenues, it becomes more dismissive than supportive. Slowly, we are seeing a little bit of a change in that, but India is still a country where like celebrity culture is a big deal, and so when you have a lot of popular celebrities, popular influencers who speak against therapy or turn therapy into a joke and all, it puts people off as well, being like कि हाँ मैं क्यों जाऊँ फिर therapy के लिए,
Hmm.
and not just therapy but any other forms of support either, right? And India also, like, for a lot of families there is this thing कि they will acknowledge that somebody is feeling bad or anxious or sad, but their explanation might be कि हाँ इनका बुरा वक्त चल रहा है. And the solution to that might be something more metaphysical. They'll go to an astrologer or a pandit or a guruji or something like that, which can be beneficial if done right. Like it might bring them a lot of mental peace and calmness.
Mm-hmm.
But somebody who has an illness may not find it treatable, right? Like that's not treatment. That might be a
Agree.
beneficial support to your life, to your daily routine, to your schedule. If you have a place of faith that you visit regularly, you can find community there. You can find a lot of social support. But at some point, you might need something more than that. And to completely dismiss it then becomes really difficult. And in India, there is a tendency to be very dismissive about health in general, not just mental health, but even physical health. Um, I don't know if you have anyone in your
Mm-hmm.
family with diabetes. I know a lot of
Of
the
course,
upper
yes.
generation, my parents, my friends' parents. And yesterday we were at a function, and one of my friends' mothers was like, "Oh, the rasmalai is really good," and he started scolding her because she has diabetes. And she's like, "Arey, but I'm working out also, so I do that so that I can eat sweets." And we had a doctor sitting with us. She's like, "That's not how diabetes works." So even physical health is taken so casually. It's very dismissive in India. तो mental health के लिए तो अभी तक बहुत काम करना है to get it to be taken seriously.
Right. Of course, like when you talked about the other parts that people used to seek, like astrology or different kind of support. Uh, Recently, I was studying this that The astrology market has crossed nearly 300 CR revenue per year in India, just in India. And there is a single app that clocked in more than 100 CR. We already know their names, right? So
Yeah,
how they cracked it? Because they are selling hope.
yeah,
So um, therapy needs to get mature in India in terms of market size, just because therapy is not something that caters to a short-term benefit or a short-term, you can say, result. They will not, therapist will not give you the fake hopes. Therapist will, of course, help you recover with a long-term plan. It's a long-term process, not just like an instant solution. So that's why people just go to astrologers and used to worsen their cases.
yeah.
And इंडियन मार्केट है भी ऐसी कि माथा चढ़ गई है, नजर चढ़ गई है किसी की, इसकी नजर उतार दो, घर में हवन करा दो, ठीक है. And we don't have any scientific proof of it, so we can't of
Yeah.
course stand by it. But yeah, when you talk about the diabetic part as well, the physical health is also taken for granted in India. But I want to just highlight this as well, that physical symptoms दिख जाते हैं. तो अगर कुछ आपको दिख रहा है
Hmm.
तो आपके आसपास लोग या फिर आप उस पे थोड़ा तो वर्क करोगे.
Yeah.
वेलनेस का जो साइकोलॉजिकल होता है, व्हाट डू यू थिंक? क्योंकि वो दिखता नहीं है, राइट? सो
That is true.
if somebody is facing that and their family member or friends are around them, so उस friend को या उस family member को क्या ऐसा करना चाहिए to make them feel safe? Yeah.
The first thing is to not be immediately dismissive, right? Which is what very commonly happens. That what do you have to be upset about? किस बात की anxiety? Normal तो life है,
Hmm.
And a lot of people already internally think that everything in my life is well, you know, job hai, family hai, ghar hai, sab kuch to hai, like whose basic necessities are met, right? Because also there is this thing in India where it's like, but at least तुम सड़क पर नहीं हो, at least तुम्हारी family है, at least तुम्हें खाना मिल रहा है, uh, right? It is that be grateful for your blessings, and again, to an extent, that is fairly decent advice. But if a person is already going through a mental health concern, whether it is depression, whether it's anxiety, whether it is stress, whether it is post traumatic stress, right? Being dismissive of that is not helpful. So, firstly, just saying that I didn't know you were going through something like that. I'm sorry that you're experiencing this. I'm sure it must be very difficult. Even if you don't agree that anything in their life is very stressful or depressing or anxious, right? Even if you feel like उनका life तो इतना अच्छा है, you still don't have to say it. You can still show your support, right? Um, Another thing which happens socially is if somebody is a little anxious, does start pulling away from people. कि अरे especially amongst friends, in the younger generation, कि अरे इसमें तो अभी बहुत attitude है,
Hmm.
right? That very quick to be like, I'm not calling him. हम लोग बाहर जा रहे हैं तो मैं ऐसे नहीं लेके जा रहा हूँ. हम लोग प्लान बना रहे हैं उसको नहीं इनवाइट करना है, वो तो हर वक्त रोती रहती है. That sort of a thing happens and that person ends up becoming more isolated. So
Mhm.
inviting them, even if they show up, don't show up, you can still extend an invitation. You can still engage with them if they choose to come, because that social support also becomes very important. You cannot offer medical support, you cannot offer professional support, you cannot offer anything other than social support. So at least try to offer that when possible.
Well, right. Plus, we launched gift therapy scenario and a feature on our platform nearly a year back. We found out that majority of gift therapy feature was used by friends and family members. and they were just booking it on behalf of somebody that they need the most. For example, if I feel that my friend is suffering from something, I will just open my phone and book a session for him. So that's also an extended support
Yeah.
that people showed, and we are glad about it. And as well as when you talked about the scenarios that people play along, people used to neglect things up. They don't call for movies or plans. That's worsen the scenarios. I personally saw a lot of cases that it was a minor anxiety or a minor panic attacks, but that became a major part just because they became lonely at a point of their life.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's a part like when you don't showcase the support, person who is facing things used to cut himself or herself out of the world, and that also comes to a lonely part.
Yeah.
So if somebody is at this like at their initial stage of facing anxiety or maybe just a normal panic attack. No, panic attack are not normals, but if they are at the start of it, then what exactly would you prefer as a therapist? That what exactly they should do at a starting point? For example, if panic attack पता है आने वाला है अभी, क्योंकि एक पैटर्न है, मुझे कॉफी पी के और एक पर्टिकुलर स्मेल से पैनिक अटैक शुरू हो जाता है फॉर एग्जांपल. अगर ये सिनेरियो हो गया, what should
Mm.
I do right away to stop it or to just delay it? How it is? Yeah.
Right. Firstly, you are already much ahead of the game because you know what your triggers are. बहुत लोगों को पता ही नहीं है कि पैनिक अटैक क्यों हो रहा है. So the fact that you're able to identify that, you're already ahead of that. Secondly, this is very cliche, but deep breathing is actually something that helps, right? And I know this is very, very cliche advice, but even if you are actively having a panic attack, you would have seen movies where shows where they give you like a paper bag to breathe into, right? And that's because that actually helps to regulate your breathing, to regulate the panic. क्योंकि क्या होता है कि हमारा जो फिजिकल बॉडी का सिस्टम है वो ओवरलोड में चला जाता है, right? It's like that caveman brain of ours takes over and we go into like fight or flight कि या तो अभी दौड़ना है या तो अभी लड़ना है. So our whole body kind of starts preparing for that, you know. And if you are fighting or running, सांस हाँफने लगती है, all of your blood goes into your hands and your legs because that's where it's needed. So your digestion slows down, your eyes become bigger, right? So a lot of that is happening so that you can take in more information. But you're not actually in that kind of a life threatening situation. Maybe if you were, then that will be helpful. But since you're not in that situation, actually, your body needs to be reminded that everything is okay. So, taking deep breaths helps the body to remember that whatever the threat is, it's not actually here. It is gone away. It is okay. You can come back to your regulated system. जो balance रहता है body में वो वापस लाने के लिए. So deep breathing, thinking about something more positive. If the panic attack has not yet happened, drinking water or like eating something small, especially like a chocolate or something. I used to have a lot of exam anxiety, and one of my teachers is like, eat a chocolate before the exam. And I'm like, I am misspelling my name in the exam because that's how stressed I am. And he's like, no, but genuinely it will help to like alleviate some of the stress. So eating something small, especially with sugar, with sweet, because that also like brightens the brain up. Um, very, very small, simple steps that you can take, जो काफी easily accessible है, not some very complex therapy terms or not some very complex exercises. तो ये बहुत accessible हो जाता है and it is very helpful to regulate your system. Then.
Right, I believe distraction can also help couple of times. So what do you say about it? कि अगर मैं खुद को distract कर रहा हूँ कुछ करके, for example, काफी लोग exactly करते क्या हैं? उन्हें अगर अपने pattern realize हो गए, they used to just do this. They used to just pinch themselves for a while. They should distract themselves. So what about it? Like, will that work?
Distractions can work to an extent. It also depends on to what level the anxiety is coming up. Pinching yourself or whatever also can trigger the similar response. Ki what your body is assuming to be as a big threat, you pinch yourself, you get hurt a little bit. There's a little bit of pain sensation. So your body thinks, okay, now the fight is over. So abhi relax kar sakte hain, right? There is also another technique which is used where you tighten all of your muscles. आप अपने पूरे body के सारे muscles को clench करते हैं and after a few seconds or a uh, few breaths you relax it. And because of that, your body again thinks, like the brain again thinks कि we finished the fight and abhi hum chill kar sakte hain. And it kind of comes back to that regulated state. The problem happens if you are constantly anxious for a very long time. Your body doesn't have the time to come out of that fight or flight state, especially if you are not actively taking time to do things to relax the body to bring it back out of that dysregulated state.
Understood. So, what about the pattern analysis? Can a person himself do it? Cause therapist job is to take you out of the current scenario that you are in, that you are facing the challenge, and help you analyze the pattern और long term में help करना उसको. That what people used to understand the most कि हाँ यार मेरे को अगर long term अपनी health पे focus करना है, let's go for therapy. But what if somebody is not looking for therapy because of XYZ reason? It can be the financial stress, it can be a scenario that they can't take this session because they are in that scenario, that outlook. For example, उनके household की तरफ से they are not allowed to it or they can't take it. They don't have the device का access. They don't have बाहर जाके offline session का access. Then, if somebody can't take therapy, what exactly they should do?
So, if there is a pattern, it is possible to recognize it, but it needs a lot of introspection. Ki what happened, when did it happen, how did it happen, right? Which cannot happen while you are having a panic attack or while you are feeling anxious. You need a little bit of space from that, right? There are a lot of self-help tools in today's day and age, right? Especially uh, a lot of apps on the Play Store or on
Hmm.
Apple Store, whatever, right? Um, because a lot of companies and a lot of therapists, psychiatrists, mental health professionals are the ones in that space building the apps or trying to use technology to make it more accessible. And some of them are very helpful. That is one thing. The second is having some kind of social support, which is actually supportive, right? How supported does that person actually feel? Who you can talk to, who you can, because sometimes you might be thinking of something in your mind, but talking it out loud can help to also understand and identify the patterns, can help to make sense of a situation. Sometimes you need an external person to be like, hey, that's not normal. Especially if it's something you've had your whole life or something you've been dealing with for a long time or something you're experiencing for the first time, especially with relationships. Like you need somebody to tell you that, hey, the way your partner is treating you is not okay. Like he shouldn't speak to you like that, or she shouldn't do that to you. Like that's not okay. Because someone may not know that. Or somebody who's like, he, you waking up every night in the middle of the night is not good for you, right? Like you might need some support. Sometimes we don't even identify the problem here until it is pointed out to us. So having enough people in our life who know us that much, who we can trust that much. Another is journaling, writing your thoughts, writing what is happening. Because again, then that gives you kind of, if you are like, okay, what is the pattern? ये कब हो रहा है, क्यों हो रहा है? And you don't know, you can go back and see. And then you can begin to identify a pattern. Even though consciously you may not realize it, when you read what you have written last week, last month, 6 months back, then you start noticing that, oh, this is the pattern. The other is, of course, just leading a healthier lifestyle. If you are someone who's depressed or anxious or having mental health concerns, um, and you're skipping meals, you're sleeping at 1 a.m. and waking up at 6 a.m. and going off to college or work or starting your household chores or whatever, right? You're sleep deprived, you're not eating properly, आप दिन में 2 glass पानी पी रहे हो, right? All of these very basic things, and again it sounds very cliche, बहुत ही basic लगता है कि अरे ये क्या बात हुई, but actually making sure that those basic needs are met gives a huge boost. Because when you have those mental health concerns, it becomes much more difficult to do these basic things, right? You don't feel like eating. Like one of the symptoms of depression and anxiety is that you lose your appetite or that you are overeating to the point where you are eating beyond full. तो आपको खुद खाने से uncomfortable feel हो रहा है. But depression impacts your appetite, it impacts your sleep. या तो आप दिन भर सो रहे हो या तो आप बिल्कुल नहीं सो रहे हो. Both are not good for you. So making sure that you are still able to manage those things and are doing that also in a healthy way कि आप अपने खाने पर ध्यान रख रहे हो, आप अपनी sleep पर ध्यान रख रहे हो to the extent that you can.
Right. So I believe anxiety is something that can be managed easier than depression. The scenario that I want to convey here is it's a two-way straight line और उसमें extremes होते हैं. Anxiety is less extreme than depression, but it's still a serious concern. That what I personally felt with the cases that we have seen. But extreme के ना दो ends है कि आपका appetite बहुत ही कम हो जाएगा या बहुत बढ़ जाएगा.
Yeah.
You will not be in the center. आपका स्लीप आएगी नहीं 2 दिन तक ठीक से बिल्कुल भी. अब 2 घंटे भी नहीं सोए या फिर आप सो रहे हो 15 घंटे दिन के. ठीक है. 8 आवर्स की स्लीप कहीं रह ही गई है. सो दो एंड पॉइंट्स होते हैं एक्सट्रीमिज्म के जो कि people used to face. And what I personally saw is majority of the therapists have a very strict hours of working that they used to follow. Of course, we all are human beings, but majority of the people used to take like feel like they have to take therapy between 12 a.m. to 6 a.m. So this is also a stats that we came across कि majority जिन्हें एंजाइटी एंड डिप्रेशन के सिम्टम्स है वो रात के 12 बजे से 6 बजे इंस्टेंट थेरेपी सीक आउट करते हैं. एंड मे बी दैट्स व्हाई जो एस्ट्रोलॉजी का बिजनेस है या और जो बिजनेस है सबसे ज्यादा रात के 11 बजे से लेकर सुबह 8 बजे में ही रेवेन्यू अपना सबसे ज्यादा कमाते हैं. सो व्हाट यू वांट टू से टू समबडी हु इज feeling very anxious at 2 a.m. and they don't have anybody to talk, anywhere to go, and maybe they are just talking to AI about their wellness. What advice would you give to them?
Firstly, I will say that anxiety is better than depression, worse than depression. As a therapist, I would never say something like that. Both can be really difficult. Anxiety also is one of the symptoms of depression. So often, if there is depression, there is also anxiety, right? Which just makes it more difficult because now there is more than one thing that you have to manage.
Right. Yeah.
That being said, both are difficult to deal with depending on how much it is impacting you, how much it's affecting you. In terms of the statistics, I don't know where this number is from, but I can imagine because at night time, it's more quiet. It is more peaceful. There are less distractions, right? You cannot go talk to your friends. You cannot sit with your family. Bahar jaake, especially if you're living with your family, you can't suddenly switch on the TV because everybody will wake up, and a lot of those considerations are there. So you are now suddenly left alone with your thoughts. It is also a time when your mind is not as active. थोड़ा सा वो rest state में जाता है, तो these thoughts are now at the forefront and keeping you awake. Having some kind of distractions, whether it is, and this is also why social media usage is higher at night. YouTube videos are watched, right? There's this whole thing of like going down the Wikipedia rabbit hole in the middle of the night. Lot of social media and just phone activity, online shopping karna beach raat ko, right? All of these things happen if that is something you're experiencing कि बहुत anxiety हो रही है, बहुत ज्यादा आप सो नहीं पा रहे हो, रोना आ रहा है या मन बहुत उदास है. Avoid any big decisions at that time. जॉब छोड़ना है, ब्रेकअप करना है, कॉलेज से ड्रॉप आउट करना है, शादी तोड़नी है, शादी करनी है, like any big decisions that you are making at that point of time, right? And I'm not going into like the very extreme ones. Your mind is not doing a good job at being rational at that point. So don't take any decisions which cannot be undone later on. I have seen like people writing resignation letters at like 1 a.m. and being like कि नहीं भेजो मत. लिख दिया, निकल गया मन से, भेजना मत. कल 11 बजे सुबह, see if you still feel that way. Right? Because then that's when reality comes in that no, I still have bills to pay, घर पे पैसे भेजने हैं, rent भरना है, ये है, वो है. And then you're like, no, no, I need to keep. Right?
Right.
So one is that don't make any major decisions at that time.
Hmm.
The second is you don't have anyone to talk to because that's the time when log so rahe hain.
Right.
If you are someone who has friends in different time zones, you might still find somebody to talk to. If that's not the case, distraction works to an extent. Finding support to sleep helps, whether that is through meditation. Nowadays you have these things on YouTube called sleep stories. और जैसे
Right.
बचपन में they would read out stories so you slept or lullabies so you slept, लोरी सुनाते थे, तो अभी वो YouTube पे मिल जाता है.
Right.
And actually if it helps, if it works, then there is no harm in it. And I know a lot of people who do find benefit from it, and it is very relaxing and comforting. And at that moment, you feel slightly less alone because there is some other voice that you can hear.
Right. Yeah.
So that can help if you're able to fall asleep. The other thing is to remember that at this point, you just have to get till tomorrow morning, right? Then you can message your friends, you can talk to your family, you can talk to your friend at work, whoever is there around you, whoever you feel supported by, right? And again, I will again say journaling, writing, so that it's not all in your head, it's coming out. आपको थोड़ा सा वो venting के लिए space मिल रहा है, आपको थोड़ा सा वो अपने जहन से बाहर निकालने का मौका मिल रहा है, right? Journaling also is helpful at that time. Distracting yourself by doing something productive, right? एक distraction तो हो जाता है, social media, YouTube, Wikipedia, online shopping वगैरह, right? We talked about that. Other things like if you have a hobby, painting, or if you have a hobby of jigsaw puzzles, anything that you enjoy doing, right? And you will see a lot of people जो ऐसे बीच रात को painting कर रहे हैं, या फिर of course if
Hmm.
you live in a building and your hobby is to play the trumpet, that may not work. But जो भी appropriate है, if you want to read a book or something like that, which also keeps your mind alert, it also keeps your mind more positive depending on what you're doing because it's something you enjoy doing. So these are some of the suggestions that I would give. The other, again, if it is possible, depending on safety, depending on location, taking a walk, थोड़ी देर ऐसे घर से बाहर निकलना, नेचर में होना, if wherever it is possible. Even if it is just like looking up at the sky, at the moon, stars अगर दिख रहे हैं, it kind of helps to ground you in reality. थोड़ा calm लगता है. Nature itself has a lot of like healing properties, being around plants, being around animals, being under the sky, being near the sea. As human beings, we are a part of nature, and because of that, our brains still work as nature being a source of comfort for us. For us living in cities, it is difficult to find that nature. Um,
Right.
it also helps you remember that you are not alone. You are part of something bigger, right? You are a part of this world. You are a part of the nature. So that also I've seen has been very helpful for a lot of my clients. Again, like I said, based on safety and everything. I like if you live in an unsafe area, रात के 2:30 बजे, I'm not recommending that, right? Yeah.
Right, if you have a separate garden all across और ना घर का ही वरांडा है तो जाके टहल लो but
Yeah. Yeah.
don't go sidewalks in the side city so वो थोड़ा
हाँ.
unsecured है so I realized this tier 1 cities में mental health की awareness है काफी लोग फेस करते हैं they are sleeping काफी लेट काफी जल्दी उठ रहे हैं स्लीप साइकिल बहुत खराब हो रखी है and due to work, I was in that case as well. But I realized कि मैं geopolitics जब देखता हूँ ना रात में मुझे अच्छी नींद आती है. So that can be my scenario कि मैं हेडफोन लगा के या जस्ट साइड में एक टैब पे अपना जियोपॉलिटिक्स लगा के आई एम जस्ट लाइक काफी लोगों को समझ नहीं आता कि भाई ये प्राइम मिनिस्टर की बात सुन रहा है ये सुन रहा है कि अभी यूएस और चाइना की डील में क्या हुआ वैसे नींद आ जा रही है सुनते ही सो दैट्स माय पैटर्न दैट आई फील हैप्पी अबाउट कि हाँ मुझे इंफॉर्मेशन भी मिल रही है एंड आई एम गेटिंग इनटू स्लीप स्टेट एज वेल so I believe it's also about what you like the most that also be a scenario is it right is it wrong
I mean, that's also why I said many hobbies that you have, right? And also, if you see the advice that I've given,
hmm
and again, ये काफी genetic है, but it's also against the very popular notion कि screen time मत रखो सोने से पहले,
right
right? And I'm like कि हाँ ठीक है YouTube चला लो, कर लो online shopping because it is. I understand at that time your mind becomes your biggest enemy because your
hmm.
mind is giving you lot of negativity, lot of negative information आपके बारे में. Like in depression, we call it the cognitive triad: negative thoughts about yourself, negative thoughts about the future, negative thoughts about the world. Right? Those are the three things about which आपकी सोच negative बनती जा रही है. So at that time, even if yes, okay, screen time is not the best for you, but it is an effective barrier between those thoughts and you. Because then that becomes very overwhelming. तो अगर आपको जियो पॉलिटिक्स अच्छा लग रहा है तो सुनो. ऑनलाइन शॉपिंग में भी क्या, इट इज बिकॉज इट्स एंजॉयबल फॉर देम. यूट्यूब देखने में भी इट इज एंजॉयबल टू देम, राइट? And also depending on where the source of this information is from. If it is from a very decent journalist, or if you are reading an article, it is different. If it is like लोग चिल्ला चिल्ला के लड़ रहे हैं टीवी चैनल पर, तो that might be
Hmm.
slightly more difficult to get sleep because of just like the variations in volume and stuff, right? You might have a specific source of news also that you go to.
Right.
Uh, तो वो भी हो सकता है.
हमने काफी हैबिट्स की बात की दैट पीपल कैन ऐड टू देयर लाइफ एंड आई बिलीव वो हैबिट में ऐड करेंगे दैट कैन बी अ वेरी गुड सिनेरियो लाइक वॉकिंग मेडिटेशन दैट आल्सो इंक्लूड्स द फिजिकलिटी और द फिजिकल हेल्थ
Mhm.
so when we are going towards the last end of this podcast I want it to be now a bit shifted to physical and mental health how they are correlated इन दोनों को साथ में मेंटेन कैसे कर सकते हैं somebody who is working in 9 to 5 or into entrepreneurship or doing their own business or maybe in a teaching job or whatever it is उनके पास इतना टाइम बैंडविड्थ नहीं है अपने आप को देने को। सो हाउ दे कैन मेक अ बैलेंस आउट ऑफ इट कि फिजिकल हेल्थ भी ठीक जा रही है, मेंटल हेल्थ भी ठीक जा रही है।
Right. So that is another thing that personally I don't understand कि physical health, mental health को हम इतना separate क्यों करते हैं?
हम्म।
Right? When you look at the WHO definition of health, they say it is a state of complete physical, mental, and social well-being, not just the absence of disease or anything.
राइट।
So it is happening to you, whether it is mental health, whether it is physical health. आप अगर रात को नींद नहीं आ रही है ठीक से, नहीं सो पा रहे हो ठीक से, तो आपको सर दर्द होगा, आपका मूड भी खराब होगा। दोनों चीजें होंगी, एक मेंटली एक फिजिकल है, राइट? एंड दिस इज नॉट इवन इन एन इलनेस, राइट? दिस इज एक दो रात के लिए भी अगर नींद नहीं आई ठीक से, physical health, mental health are both very interrelated because they are experienced by you. And those two are systems जो हमने मॉडर्न साइंस में अलग किया है कि मेंटल हेल्थ ये है, फिजिकल हेल्थ ये है। फिजिकल हेल्थ के बहुत सारे सिम्टम्स हैं जो नहीं दिखाई देते हैं। वी स्टिल डोंट हैव द टूल्स टू स्कैन फॉर इट। एंड मेंटल हेल्थ के भी इतने सिम्टम्स हैं जो जब हम स्कैन करते हैं ब्रेन का तो वी कैन सी कि किसी का अमिगडाला बड़ा है या छोटा है, different parts of the brain are getting activated. Your digestive system is getting activated. तो अलग अलग चीजें हैं that we can observe and see. When you are stressed, like we said, कि depression होता है तो it impacts your sleep, it impacts your appetite. If your sleep and appetite are impacted, of course, आपको acidity होने लग जाएगी, आपको पेट में दर्द होना शुरू हो जाएगा. Your weight might fluctuate. If your weight is fluctuating, especially for women, you might have hormonal issues. आपके periods haywire हो जाएंगे, right? Um, Conversely, if you have a physical health issue, right? If you have cancer, if you have anything, right? Even if just a simple fever, if you have long-term health issues, all of that impacts how you feel. It impacts your mental health. They have seen, they've done research that fever के time पे depression के symptoms आते हैं. Even though it's a physical condition, right? कि बुखार चढ़ा है. We never think about fever as having a mental health impact. But research shows that it does. And that's still a very acute illness. If we look at chronic illness, it becomes so much more difficult, especially because even today we don't know or we aren't able to identify a lot of chronic illnesses. Why is a chronic illness happening? Half the people don't know. Something like an autoimmune condition, we have very recently got the names for it also. People don't know how to diagnose it. People don't know, like a lot of the times, I remember when I was in 12th standard, I used to
हम्म।
have really bad headaches and nausea. And my doctor is like, हाँ पैरासिटामोल ले लो. और मैं दिन में, मैं क्या 15 साल 16 साल की थी, I did not know any better. I used to take like 8-10 paracetamols in a day. And I didn't make it better. And then they're like, oh, it's probably a migraine. They didn't do a blood test. They didn't do any sort of testing or scanning. They were like, ठीक है सिर दर्द है दवाई से नहीं जा रहा है तो migraine ही होगा. They also didn't give me any medication or treatment for migraine. My doctor is like, don't eat chocolate, don't eat cheese, don't drink wine. I'm like, मैं 15 साल की मैं wine क्यों पीऊंगी? Like, what is this advice? Like, this is not helpful. And we still don't know exactly why migraines happen. I have still never been given like a specific medication कि इससे migraine ठीक हो जाएगा. We have been
एग्री।
studying everything in a silo. कि हम अगर पोलन्स पढ़ रहे हैं तो हम सिर्फ पोलन को ही पढ़ेंगे. हम अगर गॉल ब्लैडर को पढ़ रहे हैं तो हम सिर्फ गॉल ब्लैडर को ही पढ़ेंगे. बट इट्स नॉट लाइक वो एक वैक्यूम में हो रहा है. It is impacted by what we think, who we talk to, what air we are breathing, what food we are eating, what medicines we are taking. The whole
हम्म।
system of ours is experiencing life. I know so many people who are like कि मैंने इतनी healthy life जिया है, why do I have cancer? Or why am I having fertility issues? Or why did I have a heart attack at 39? I run marathons, मैं तो इतना healthy हूँ, इतना fit हूँ, right? And it's not your fault. तुम्हारे हैबिट्स इम्प्रूव कर सकते हैं तुम्हारे चांसेस कि शायद नहीं हो आपको कोई हेल्थ कंसर्न, बट कोई गारंटी नहीं है that your physical health, your mental health will always be good. And if something happens that there is a health concern, whether it is physical, whether it is mental, blaming yourself or blaming somebody else for it, ki, Are, my mother makes very oily rotis all the time, that is not going to help you. Pretending like the problem is there is not going to help you. Not seeking support or not taking advice, medical support, professional support is also not going to help you. तो अक्सर लोग अपने हेल्थ को प्रायोरिटाइज करते हैं बाय ट्राइंग टू मैनिपुलेट इट.
Everything is interconnected in your body. It's not like your wellness is having multiple parts. Mental health अलग हो गया, physical health अलग हो गया. Not really. So thanks a lot, Tanisha, to be here. And thanks a ton to share your insights about this particular topic because this is the need of an hour right now.